Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, to Head once again. It is a special evening for me, and you will see why. Because I know the lady somewhat, and consequently, I am very proud to bring her on this show, because sometimes we tend to forget the people that can make a difference in our society. It is their world, not my world. And consequently, we have to promote them and not go on and look back to people that has what I call has been. So tonight, it's a pleasure, once again, for those in the diaspora and all of St. Lucia, to have on the show someone who's young, I think she is, but very talented. She's a speaker and counselor, counseling and psychology, that is. She's the CEO of and founder of Making It Work Consultancy. She's also employed as an EGP, it is EAP, Employee Assistant Program, counselor with the government of St. Lucia. As a counseling psychologist, she specializes in helping individuals to find meaning and purpose in life. And I think that is very important, because we must all, that is the problem with a lot of us. We are not finding that meaning and what we are here for. So my guest holds a master's in counseling psychology and BSc in psychology and social policy. She continues to assist individuals and families to improve their capacity for social functioning through her career and faith-based ministry. She's very evangelical, so to speak. She's a former recipient of the EDF scholarship, that is, the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine Development and Endowment Fund Award, and at the University, again, of the West Indies, Cave Hill campus, for scholastic excellence. She's also the author of one book, and here it is, although it says tall, but it tells you a lot that, we take for granted. And this is so important. And I hope St. Lucians and you in the diaspora, because it's on Amazon, I think. So try and get that book. It is worth it, as far as I'm concerned. And it's called Tall, as you see, an empowering journey to self-esteem mastery. So tonight I want to introduce to you no other than Mrs. Sacha Pierre-James. Sacha, good evening.
Good evening to you, Mr. Springer. Thank you so much for having me.
I could have gone on so much more to say about you, but just you being here, is a privilege. And I hope St. Lucians see you as someone for the future, and consequently, they don't only look at you, but look at others like you. We need that right now in our development. Sacha, the first question I want to put to you is that I was intrigued why you want to study psychology in order to help individuals to find meaning and purpose in life. In other words, what prompted you in that direction?
Very interesting question, Mr. Springer. Initially, my first love was actually for English and English Lit. However, at some point in my life, I would say perhaps during my teenage years, I always had this very natural ability to make people feel comfortable, and it was my interest to channel my energies and to help persons in that field, the helping profession. And initially it was social work, because I actually started a degree in social work. However, at the time I felt it was more significant for me to focus primarily on psychology, and that was of course because of my interest. And as cliche as it may sound, Mrs. Springer, I have always had this love for people, for helping people. And because of my own life journey, I have seen the benefits of, understanding self and coming from a supportive unit. And I have seen so many persons lacking this. So just my natural ability to make people feel comfortable, my natural love to assist people, to empower them. So in a nutshell, this is what prompted me to study the field of psychology. And of course, it's quite a fascinating field. I'm sure you would agree.
but to be honest, when you were much younger, what was around you that fascinated you so much to the extent that English lit, because that was what I taught in England, English lit, English language, history, environmental subjects. And there are little things in life that prompts us, makes us want to do that. And regardless how poor we are, we get that energy. Was that in the same thing
for me? Well, similarly, for me, I've always been, I consider myself to be somewhat of an introvert, and books offered a refuge for me. So, growing up, really quiet little girl, and I was always reading. I have always been fascinated in learning new things, and reading offered an escape for me. And even at school, at secondary school, at A-level, I continued to pursue English Lit, which I did very well in. But at some point, as I mentioned previously, I felt it was better for me to channel my energies in the field of psychology. Now, of course, in your introduction, you made mention that I'm an author. So this part of me is not on the back burner, because I am practicing psychology and I am still writing.
Good, because I must say to you in the diaspora in St. Lucia, I got to know Sacha because she did and has done a supervisory management course and intends to do the advanced supervisory management course. And guess what? It is about the psychology of management. So I can't wait for her in January to start that course, because I have that psychological help. And I must say to Sacha, thank God I met somebody who knows a little bit about psychology, so it helps on the course. But what I'm interested in also, Sacha, is what prompted you to write your first book. Why did you think that it was necessary, especially the areas it dealt with, such as help to empower, to motivate, because we did a lot of that on our course, motivate, overcome, and for me, especially doing psychology, this idea, and people don't seem to understand it, low self-esteem. I am interested in all of these areas. Why?
Well, TAL, an empowering journey to self-esteem mastery. TAL was actually birthed from a genuine desire to help to empower persons, particularly in the area of developing a positive and healthy self-esteem. And not just self-esteem, but to help them to develop a sense of self-awareness. And self-esteem and self-awareness work hand in hand.
Correct.
It is important for a person to be aware of themselves, who they are as individuals, what makes up their identity. And this genuine desire propelled me to write this book, TAL. So when somebody picks up this book and goes through it, my aim, the objective is that this person will feel empowered. This person will feel motivated to, feel that I can do this. And whatever my goals are, I'm able to achieve them. Just a little bit of my life's journey. I grew up in a single parent family. And in society, statistics, research show that most times persons who emanate from a single parent household tend to, stray away. But of course, there are always exceptions. And growing up from a single parent family, as much as it was mostly my mom, what was not lacking is the fact that I was constantly being affirmed. So even at a very tender age, I knew that I was out to achieve great things, and even greater things, in the future, because I'm not going to stop here. So getting this constant affirmation and having a supportive unit allowed me to see that, if I can benefit from this and achieve so much and overcome some of my challenges, primarily financial challenges, then I can teach others to do just that, and perhaps even more. Many persons live day to day, Mr. Springer, and there are so many things that they need to get done. But guess what? Because of the low self-esteem, because they do not believe in themselves, because they do not understand who they are as individuals, guess what? A lot of ideas, a lot of goals remain unaccomplished. So as people pick up this book, Tall, and even as I show the public Tall, sometimes people wonder, Tall, but why tall? Is it because you're 5'10"? And I'm always eager to explain the concept of tall, because when you see a tall person, what do you see, Mr. Springer?
No. I must say that my first wife was about nearly 6 foot. So obviously, I was used to tall people at home. Mm-hmm. She was German, blonde, tall, blue eyes. So you can well imagine, living with this person for quite some time, that I never thought of short or tall women. I looked at her primarily as a woman and not because she's tall. Mm-hmm. But I must say that, in the past in St. Lucia, when women were tall, men used to, she's too tall. But now, the most elegant women you find are the tall women. I must tell you that. Yes, especially if they're beautiful.
Definitely. But when you see a tall person or a tall building, you see something that is firm.
That's
you
true.
See confidence when you see this tall, majestic thing or person. So the concept behind tall is that when you are tall,
yes,
you represent confidence. You are self-assured. So tall is pretty much a physical representation of an individual who firmly believes in themselves, an individual who is self-assured, an individual who feels invincible. And guess what? Feels invincible because they understand who they are, and of course they have a positive, a healthy self-esteem.
But it's the thing that one says that we say sometimes, that I know itself be true. If you are true to yourself and you know yourself, and that is where one talks about the self-esteem, because people with low self-esteem, sometimes they need someone to sort of help them along. And I think that if something like your book can help those people, it is important. But you see a lot of people, what they do when people have low self-esteem, instead of trying to bring them up, they bring them down. It is and it's the things they say. Oh, it's a waste of time. No, they waste of time because that's what you think. Why don't you look to see what is good in that person to try and lift them up? Because I think that is most important. And that's why I was so interested in the book, the idea of you thinking of people with low self-esteem. Because, to be honest with you, we have so many of them. We need to lift them up by their bootstraps, so to speak. Because it's not because they're not talented. They have the talent, but the low self-esteem keeps them down. And we have to try and lift them up. You know, I'm going to take the break here, and then I want to come back. I want to come to ask you, to an extent, your vision for the future when we are talking about this idea of self-esteem and things like that sort. So hold the line, we'll be back. You in the diaspora, we're coming back. Welcome back to Head to Head. And tonight I have Sacha with me. And Sacha is for me, an excellent student. I must tell you that she did as I said before, the supervisory management course with me at the Open Campus. And in the 10 or 15, well, probably over 10 years that I've been doing this course, no one has ever come out with A+. And I thought it would never happen until Sacha came along. So, you know, having her here with me, I feel proud because, and I must tell you too, she was an excellent student, never late. Oh my God, never. Sometimes I think she wanted to beat me in coming in early, because I am always early, and sometimes once or twice I got a little bit uptight because Sacha was already ahead of me. I'll tell her that now, but that is what it is. So Sacha, as I said, what is your vision for the future, not only of yourself, your book, your life, but what would you want to see for the country also? What is the vision you have? Because we have talent in St. Lucia, and you are a classical example of that talent.
Thank you, Mr. Springer. But just before I address your question, let me take you back to, I think it was perhaps the second day of class, and I recalled you saying that no student has ever attained an A+. And I'm not sure if you recall. Not sure if you recall, but yes. I said to you, we'll see about that.
That's right. But I took that as a passing thing, because I thought to myself in Creole, like, yo, personne passa point to A+. So, you know, I mean, it was like a passing thing. But when I finally saw it, I thought, oh my God, after all those years, it finally happened. So it is so nice to have you on here in that respect. But it's not only that, but you have the talent. You have your master's, and I even think that we spoke about that you'd like to do your PhD.
Definitely.
So I remember all these things, you know. So as I was saying, what is your vision, you know?
My vision for St. Lucia, as it relates to youth development, is to see a caliber of young persons who are well-rounded. You mentioned that earlier on. We do have a lot of talented young people in St. Lucia, and many times some of them are not being highlighted. Some of them, as you also mentioned, need a little push. They need the motivation, and they need avenues to help them to, you know, to channel those energies and those talents and those abilities. And even as I speak to that, I would also like to say, though, even if the opportunities are not available, I believe that individuals, and I'm going to speak directly to the youth, as much as you don't have the opportunities in our nation, because we are all aware of some of the inadequacies that exist currently and previously as well, create the opportunities for yourself. Do not wait for society, the government. We often hear this, the government, I'm waiting for the government for a job, but how about creating opportunities for you, what is in your hands? What are some of the natural gifts and creative abilities that you have? And this is something that I have held very dearly. I often say, Mr. Springer, if I were to be laid off from my job, guess what? I will not die, because I could feed myself comfortably, because there are other things that I do apart from my work as a counseling psychologist, and I am engaged in making crafts and like earrings and so many other things. So my word to the young people, do not wait for an opportunity to be created. Why not create your own opportunity? You know, come up with some innovative ideas. And I'm so aware that there are so many persons with so many ideas. But as I mentioned, sometimes they need a push. And even adding to my vision for St. Lucia, I would like to see, you know, we speak about the 5 C's of youth development, focusing on competence, character, compassion, connection. And even as I speak to connection, your support system is important. For me, growing up, I spoke about my very supportive unit, and this helped me very much. So even when I ventured out, and because I knew who I was, because I knew what I was capable of, I heard it at home all the time. And even if as I said, I came from a single parent family, but I was constantly being affirmed. So the connection, the support unit plays an important role. And adding to the 5 C's, I would have mentioned character, compassion. It's important for us, and I'm going to say us because it is something not just for youth, but everybody. That compassion, that caring nature, it needs to be more visible in our society. We've heard a number of suicide cases. Sometimes all these individuals need is for one person to care, to show that they care, and not just to show, but to genuinely care about them. So in terms of youth development, my vision, creating avenues, creating opportunities that will help to emphasize on the 5 C's, connection, competence, we speak of confidence, and again, going back to my book, learning how to develop that positive sense of self-esteem.
Do you think, though, that listening to what you were saying here, you talked about your background, but don't you think, too, that maybe the church or the religion that you were part and parcel of gave you that strength also to be who you are now, because you said that one parent family. It also needed, that one parent family needed something that was the extended family to help and get strength from that, because you spoke about strength also. Do you think that was most important? That's what we are losing right now.
Definitely, and I'm so happy that you are highlighting this, because for me, my faith, my spirituality guides much of what I do. And very young, I was heavily involved in youth work. I served on the ISCCF board. This is the Inter-School Christian and College Fellowship. And I also served on the executive of the EYA, which is the Evangelical Youth Association. So I've been heavily involved in youth ministry, youth work, and of course my faith in God has helped me in so many ways, Mr. Springer. And as you rightfully pointed out, this is lacking in our society. You know, there's a focus on, I can do it, but it's more of the God factor has been taken out. But for me, I can do it because Jehovah, my ultimate creator, is the one guiding me. And even going back to my book, it was not just, okay, yes, it was to empower, but I also believe that it was a God thing. It was a God thing, as in, I needed to do this because there are too many people who struggle with so many issues, even in terms of my practice as a counseling psychologist. And I've been in this profession, the counseling field, for a little over 10 years now. Yes, I started pretty young.
Right, good, that's very good.
Yes,
very
so
good.
even in my profession, the persons that I interact with, both on a professional basis, on a casual basis, one of the underlying issues is the issue of low self-esteem.
Right.
The poor self-worth, not believing that I'm somebody, I'm worthwhile, I can achieve whatever I put my mind to.
Because a while ago, remember, even in our class, we spoke about managers motivating people, and I always say that the motivation must come from within.
Definitely.
But what the manager, just like a parent, can do is to influence you in the right way to go. And because you have that motivation from within, it helps.
Yes.
But if you don't have that influence, you can have all the motivation within. It is sometimes very difficult, especially when you are trying and people are trying to put you down. And that is probably some of the problems that we still face in our society. The young tend to think, oh, I'm not going to put my... But you did say it. We have youngsters who are very creative and innovative. And you are a classical example of those young people, because I see you as young, even though you may not think so, but you are
I definitely think so, Mr. Springer.
No, but what I'm saying in the sense of the word, because you just said about 10 years, but you started early.
Very early.
And a lot of people may not think so. They may look at you and say, no, she's just saying that. But the truth is that you have. And consequently, you have experience now that a lot of people, even much, much older, would love to have. But you have not sat and do nothing with the God-given talent that you had. You went out and try and use it in a way that was beneficial to you and St. Lucia. Don't you think so?
Definitely. And I don't believe, as much as there are challenges, because challenges will always present. However, what do you do with these challenges? How do you cope with these challenges? And part of my work as a counseling psychologist is to help people to explore solutions. And one of the theoretical orientations that we use in the field of psychology is that the client is an expert on his life. So most times the client has some answers, but they need somebody to facilitate this process of change. And Mr. Springer, one of the things that would tend to be so satisfying with my field of work is that a client may come to me, maybe feeling suicidal and feeling so depressed, and when this client walks out of the office or after the sessions have been terminated, to see the glow, Mr. Springer. I experienced it just, I'm not going to say what day it was, but just very recently. And I felt really satisfied that I have the ability to influence an individual. And as one person is influenced, then this person can then pay it forward and pass it on.
Yes, because that influence is very important. Because what we think, instead of trying to influence people, a lot of, especially those who have made it, tend to try and bring people down, not realizing that they, sooner or later, will leave this world. And what happens? What do they leave behind? Whereas they could have left something behind for others to come, especially in the development of this country. And that's why I put that to you. You know, I am sure that many people will understand what you are saying. And I must say to you in the diaspora, St. Lucia, Sacha keeps saying Mr. Springer because I was her lecturer. I am probably still going to be her lecturer, so she keeps saying that instead of saying Dennis, you know. But I'm glad she's not saying sir. You know? So I am going to hold that there, Sacha, because I want to come in the final session and to ask you about this new book of yours that you are writing right now. Why this new book? What prompted you to, write this follow-up to Toll? So we'll come back. You in the diaspora, hold on, St. Lucians, we're coming back. So Sacha can tell us all about this. And when she does put that book out, go and get it, because I can tell you it's going to be a good one. So hold on. Welcome back to the third segment of this interview with Sacha, which as I've said before, I'm very proud to have her here. And I hope the whole of St. Lucia, especially the youth, the younger generation, understands what Sacha is saying, because it is so important. So I was going to ask you, having written Tall, which is for me a beautiful book, praise for Tall, it says, you are now about to write your second book, or you have been writing your second book. What will this be about, and why you think that that second book is necessary to follow up this one?
Okay, well, I'm actually working on 2 books concurrently.
Wow! Good Lord.
It's not really a follow-up to Toll, because the focus of one of them that I'm going to share with you about is on helping people to cope with loss. And by loss, I am referring to different types of losses. Back in 2012, I would have experienced a major loss. And this has been one of the most traumatic things that have happened to me in my very short lifetime. There's a friend of mine who died in a plane crash. And coupled with this, I have interacted with so many persons who have experienced different types of losses, whether it's death of a loved one, death of a pet, even going on retirement. This is a loss as well. And miscarriages, abortions, whatever form of loss it is, helping people to cope with loss and helping them to find meaning even after they have experienced whatever the loss is. So this book it's going to be a bit on the, how would I say it? I don't want to say on the low side because of the contents, because it can trigger some really, emotionally, how would I put it? It could make a person feel sad, let's put it that way. And just to help people
No, it might not make them feel sad. It may make them feel, especially as you've just mentioned, those who have had a loss, this is a reflection of it, and may give me, in the way it is written, give me strength, to know that one loss is one thing, but there are many losses, so to speak, many ways that we begin to feel sad because we are missing whatever it is, whether it's in death, whether it's in, as you say, a miscarriage and all these sorts of things.
Yes.
But this is life.
Oh, definitely.
And now you are, what you are doing is trying to help people to cope with it in a psychological way.
Yes.
Because that is very important for individuals, because a lot of them don't know how to cope with it.
Yes.
And maybe that book now will give them something. But what you must do also with that book is to also go out and have sessions where you speak with people in that respect. I think probably that's what you should do.
Oh, yes. I have actually started the process. I think it was the year before. There was a Resilient Women's Conference at, I don't recall the name of the hotel, but I was one of the keynote speakers alongside Michonne Evans Williams. This is an author from the US, and the focus was on resilient grieving. So I've actually started the process.
All right.
And after that, it further motivated me to, continue writing the book, because I see a lot of persons who have experienced a loss, and sometimes they're at a place where they don't believe that they can ever come out of it.
Yeah.
But the concept of resilient grieving is that you learn to find meaning even after that person has left you, or even after you have experienced that loss, and learning how to cope in a resilient way. Because sometimes people cope, but they don't cope well. And then, speaking of negative coping strategies, some of them engage in negative behaviors, drinking, and so many other negative coping ways. However, it is quite possible to cope and to go through the process of resilient grieving. So look out for this book.
but the point is a lot of these people, because they don't have this what you are now explaining to us, and that is why they tend to behave in the way they behave, and some of them behave in a manner that one had never seen before. But this is why, because they don't have the help. And for me, society needs that very much, and government should be looking at that seriously. And I'm not talking about this government, I'm talking about all governments, because I think that is very important. We are going to go through loss. Even now.
Yes, I was just about to highlight, even now, we are experiencing something that has never been experienced before, well, at least in our lifetime. And during this pandemic, a lot of persons have lost family members, they have lost jobs, so many types of losses. And it is important for people to understand that despite this challenging period, I can still make it. I can still cope. And this is where mental health practitioners like myself come in. And even as I am on this topic, Mr. Springer, I would like, Dennis, even as I'm on this topic, I would like to just encourage persons. Sometimes the whole concept of going to a psychologist or mental health practitioner seems so taboo to some people. They believe that if you go to a therapist, you have a problem. But it's absolutely okay to seek the services of a counselor. We are here to help you to cope better. So
and to give them strength also.
And so very well, to give them strength. And we in the society, we need to ensure that the stigma that is associated with mental health and mental health problems, it needs to be greatly alleviated.
But don't you think, though, having traveled the world, it is in places like St. Lucia, we see that stigma? Because I don't see that stigma in my travels, and consequently, I think it's the way that we have been indoctrinated as far as mental health is concerned, because it can be handled much better than what we are, the way we are handling it. When somebody has that sort of sickness, people quickly dump them to one side, as though they're not part and part. We hide them if we can. Families do.
Yes,
but the point is, this is a human being, and they can be helped. And this is where I hate to say this evangelical grouping and feeling comes about. You have to embrace them, bring them in, help them. And I think that's what your book would probably be showing. I think it's very important.
Well, Mr. Springer, you highlighted that in St. Lucia, perhaps it's a bit more obvious.
Yeah.
And but I have to highlight though on the positive end that we have come a long way. Maybe not too much of a long way, but we have made improvements.
Yes.
Because even with the EAP program that I'm part of as a counselor, we are seeing a lot of public servants coming in to receive help. So in that light, people are beginning to see the need to see a therapist. And that is a good thing.
But you spoke about mental health, and you also spoke about we spoke about self-esteem. But when we look at all of these things, one of the things that we have not spoken about, but does affect when you see all of them together, is the word we call stress. And how do we try to live? And what you are trying to say is that stress-free, as much as we can, stress-free life. Because stress can cause mental problems.
Definitely. And you mentioned stress-free life. Is there even a stress-free life?
Well,
because even with what we can do is to learn to manage our stressors. Because stress, there is positive stress, there is good stress. So having a measure of stress can actually be healthy because there is good stress. You know, we experience different stressors. For example, an example of good stress is that perhaps you have this very big paper to write on, this very important paper, and you experience a measure of stress, but this is good stress.
Yes. Yes.
You know, so it's learning to cope with the different types of stresses and recognizing when you are feeling stressed, how to manage the stress.
How to cope with it.
How to cope, learning to say no, managing your time wisely, because sometimes some of us don't like to say no.
That's right.
When we take on increased responsibilities, we're adding more stress.
Correct.
To ourselves.
Exactly. Not being able to say no. I've had, so much. They say yes, and then they cannot cope with it.
Yes.
And then they begin to get upset because instead of... I see that a lot with, I hate to put it that way, with seamstresses.
Seamstresses.
Yes. They take on so much. Instead of saying, no, I have enough right now. I will not take on anymore. And nice people, very nice people, suddenly you could see, they get agitated because so much work. You must know your limit.
Definitely.
That's the other thing where you need the psychologists and things, the help in that direction to be able to know your limit. Some of us don't seem to know our limits. And that is something that is so important.
Yes.
Don't you find that?
Of course, definitely. We need to know our limits. And I'm going to introduce the concept of self-care. In managing your stress, it's important to focus on self-care. How many times do you exercise? How many times do you take time for you engaging in relaxation activities?
Yes.
So self-care is very important. Having a support network, again, is very important in coping with stress. And of course, there's so much more, but we are limited with time.
Yes, indeed. Because as far as I'm concerned, it is important that we go into these areas. What we are doing, we are highlighting, and so that people can understand that and then go deeper into it, because it's most important. So your presence in explaining these things isn't really necessary, and we must have far more programs like this, because it is not about us per se. It's about all of us. How we help each other to cope with the stress, to be able to help people with low self-esteem, as you mentioned, resilience, all these sorts of things. Very, very, very important. And Sacha, I must say that it's been a pleasure having you. But I want to ask you one thing. How do you see your future now?
Thank you for having me again, Mr. Springer. How do I see my future?
Yes.
I see myself, Maslow spoke about self-actualization in his hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
I see myself getting to the point where I am self-actualized. Now, of course, right now I can say that I am on that journey.
Yes.
Because I am satisfied with who I am becoming, because I'm not going to stop here, of course. So in the future, I see myself doing bigger and greater things, influencing people. I always say, when you come into contact with this individual, your life has to be challenged in some way. And that way has to be positive. Whether it is just by my smile, by my warmth, by what I say to you, but my ultimate goal is to influence people positively and help to empower them. I have a soft spot for females. So even when I interact with females, helping them to understand that you are beautiful, you are capable of so much more, and you should never settle for less.
And you're much stronger than you think you are.
Definitely.
I think that is most important with a lot of females. I would say that to my children. You are much stronger than you think you are. But don't ever think that you are not strong enough. Whatever you see others are doing, whether it's a man or not, you can do it too, And I think that what Sacha said is so important, And it's not just for females, but for males also.
Definitely.
Because there's some young people who give up too quickly in their lives, Make a life for yourself. And I hope that Sacha has come here today to really show you that you can help yourself, because you said it, helping oneself is so important.
Definitely.
There is a life out there, and it's what you make of it. It is most important. Sacha, thanks very much. It's been a pleasure, and I hope that, I know you've been a little bit excited, probably had nerves, but it's over.
No, I think for the most part I was fine. I mean, speaking to you, how can I be nervous?
Thanks very much. I've enjoyed that very much, and I'm looking forward to you on the advanced psychology of management. And thanks very much for coming. I had to present you to St. Lucia and to the diaspora. So I say to all of you good night, and I hope that you have enjoyed listening to Sacha. She's precious. So bye for now, and thank you.